Rachel Brathen, aka Yoga Girl. She is an Instagram influencer. She sells yoga classes on her website. She also sells astrology courses where you can learn the elemental medicine of astrology for only $1,000. What a steal. On a more serious note, she has a child who she plasters all over Instagram, so that's cool. She's also vegan, at least she used to be. In a recent one of her podcasts, her From the Heart podcast, she talks about no longer being vegan. As always, who cares? I mean, she says she mostly eats vegan still, which is the most important thing.
Yes, we're still eating tons of vegan food. It's not like I'm sitting here breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner eating steak.
What I want to talk about is the other stuff she talks about around veganism within this podcast. She talks a lot about identity and her mental state while she was vegan, which is really interesting. There's also a lot of universe talk and your truth and my truth and toxic mold, and veganism actually isn't sustainable. So yeah, all very interesting.
Whatever I share in this episode, it might trigger you. It might make you upset. You might get all sorts of feelings about it. Not that you can't have that emotional reaction. No, whatever is triggered inside of you is yours, right? What I'm asking for is that it stays with you. It's okay that you're triggered. It's okay that you're feeling big feelings. Trust me when I say I understand, because I have felt those same feelings before. So I understand that you might have them and they're valid.
Does she think her audience is made of children? I really don't like the your truth, my truth stuff. Just because you believe something is your truth doesn't mean it's the truth. And just because you're triggered by something doesn't mean you should be triggered, and doesn't mean you have to accept it as your truth. I would argue that being triggered to the point where you are really upset and really angry because an influencer is eating animal products again, that's bad, actually. Maybe your emotional state isn't super healthy. Maybe you need therapy. Maybe you have some false beliefs around veganism, around psychology, that lead you to believe that you should feel triggered, that you should be really angry about people no longer being vegan, and maybe even behave really hatefully toward those people. I'm not saying don't care. I mean, I did say who cares about her no longer being vegan, but I do care. I do care that people obviously struggle so much to stay vegan, but I don't get upset over it. If anything, I expect it. It's not easy to go against the norm. It's not easy to cut out large portions, a large number of foods from your diet. And I think adopting the kind of capital V vegan label, that identity that she talks about having adopted, I suspect might be kind of protective in the beginning, because it allows you to kind of create your own culture and your own group of people that you surround yourself with. It's why so many of these super dogmatic vegans, they barely even associate with people who aren't vegan. But I think in the long run, you set yourself up for failure. That is really hard to maintain. Point is, don't get invested in influencers going and staying vegan or really doing anything. We're just people too. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna disappoint you. It's gonna happen.
A cooking account that I followed for years, I really, really, really love, Minimalist Baker. And then they came out and said, hey, I'm no longer vegan. And I was appalled. I felt lied to. I felt like they had been hypocritical.
So this one is a little bit different from an influencer no longer being vegan. I'm not saying she was justified to feel the way she did, lied to and all of that. That's pretty silly. She said she learned something about herself. Hopefully she did. And Minimalist Baker, whoever the person is who runs the site, no longer being vegan is one thing, but she changed the site, right? Not only started posting vegetarian stuff, but meat stuff. There's chicken recipes and shit now on the website, a website that was previously all vegan. I've personally never relied on the site for recipes. Actually, one of the worst things I've ever made was from that site. These were just, oh my God, so many hemp seeds. Why did I even try this? But I can understand those who regularly did make recipes from this site being upset when it was announced, worrying that, oh my God, am I going to have to sift through not only vegetarian stuff, but meat recipes to find the vegan stuff? What? Now, luckily, I just went to the site and you can easily filter vegan. It's right there at the top. And each recipe has a handy little key. The V is vegetarian, VG is vegan. And the vast majority of even the new recipes are vegan.
I'm not vegan anymore. There have been so many changes in my life over the past year. The one I'm actually enjoying the most, getting rid of this label. I haven't had any other label or box that I really confined myself in, nothing comes close to veganism. Because if you're vegan and you know there's no other option.
This is why I really hate the term vegan sometimes. Yes, I'm aware. I wouldn't describe myself as vegan first, not at all. If anything, I would describe myself as like consequentialist first. I care about reducing harm, reducing suffering generally. So of course, avoiding most animal products would stem from that. I say most because, again, veganism isn't the starting point, and it certainly is not the answer. Yes, I am vegan because it's easy for me and it's easy to promote. It's a good heuristic. It's right 99% of the time. 99% of the time, vegan foods are going to be less cruel, better for the environment, better for people, but not 100% of the time. So for instance, I talk about palm oil a lot on this channel. I talk about oysters a lot on this channel. Palm oil is technically vegan. Oysters are not. But I have no doubt that palm oil is more cruel and more environmentally destructive than oysters. You could design an omnivorous diet that's heavy on like oysters and invasive species that's better on all fronts than a vegan diet that's heavy on like palm oil and tropical fruits and lettuce. Most people don't eat either of those diets, which is why vegan is useful. But I still talk about palm oil and oysters and invasive species for non-vegans to show that there is nuance and that it's not all about purity, and for vegans to show that there's nuance and it's not all about purity. So that maybe we won't have more vegans like Yoga Girl who are totally dogmatic and unyielding and ultimately wrong. They don't really understand veganism on a philosophical level. They don't really understand harm reduction. They just know vegan good, anything else bad. So I know it's a broken record for many of you, but I'm going to keep talking about the oysters and the backyard hens and the possibility for ethical milk and all that shit because I really think it's important. I really think the unyielding vegan or nothing mindset is toxic. It's such an intense mindset. I have no doubt it leads to depression and misanthropy unless you are someone who's already like that, you know, like a Vegan Gains or a Gary Yourofsky, one of those type of people. It's going to be really hard on you and you're probably not going to be able to maintain it, and you're going to give up veganism entirely just to maintain your sanity and relationships with others. I'm not saying that's what happened with Yoga Girl, but I do think it's a salient risk for anyone who treats veganism as the end all be all.
Even when people would tell me, I tried going vegan, I felt terrible. I would be like, oh, I understand. Well, you know, like everyone feels differently, but that's not what I thought. Like I would say that to be kind and avoid, drama. What I was actually thinking was, oh, but you didn't do it right.
I appreciate her honesty here. And, at least she didn't just tell people, hey, you didn't do it right. At least she kept it to herself. Although, I don't know, it kind of calls into question her whole brand, right? The super spiritual, ultra compassionate person she's selling. Like, she's so compassionate and understanding, and yet really this whole time she wasn't. She was actually like really critical of people. It's why I choose to be honest on here, even if I come across as really bitchy. It's why I don't pretend I trust people who I really do not trust. I don't feel good sitting here and pretending that someone who says she feels great 100% of the time now that she eats mostly meat should be taken seriously. I don't feel good about that. Also, I don't feel good pretending that someone who sells a $1,000 astrology course should be taken seriously. If someone eats egg and says they felt immediately better,
I immediately noticed such a difference in my own well-being. It was immediate.
I'm not going to pretend that that's a totally reasonable, not insane thing to say. I'm not at all saying we should harass her or anything. Of course not. I'm sure she's a very nice person. I'm sure she's doing the best she can and what she believes is right. Even putting her kid on Instagram, I'm sure she believes that's totally fine. Just don't take advice from her, right? Anyone who is grown and believes in magic, don't take life advice from people like that.
I felt really great in the beginning, the way most people do when you radically change your diet in that way.
Just to be clear, she went vegan when she was 18 years old, so very, very young, and she started feeling bad after her pregnancy.
Really, it was after pregnancy that I started feeling increasingly terrible and felt my energy levels drop, really, and felt my stress levels go up. And was getting sick all the time.
Which was like a decade later. Could it be she was feeling worse because she was a decade older? There's a big difference between 18 and almost 30. I felt totally different. I feel totally different now than I did at 18. And pregnancy is hard on everyone. It's not uncommon to feel depleted afterward, particularly if your diet was really poor, which hers seems to have been.
In Costa Rica, I was eating, fresh fruits and vegetables and legumes and just whole foods that were all organic, grown locally for the last few years of living in Aruba. Every time I found something new that was labeled vegan at the grocery store, I was like, oh my God, amazing. And I didn't really care what it was. It was like vegan tater tots. I'm there, vegan pepperoni pizza. Let's go. Beyond Meat and Beyond Sausage. Let's go. Vegan burgers, vegan chicken wings, vegan cheeses. Oh my God, we ate so much vegan cheese and vegan butter and like the vegan version of everything. Where before, literally, I would have some like extra virgin olive oil on my toast with avocado and fresh cut tomato and some sea salt on my like whole grain, whatever organic toast I had. And now I was eating this like very heavily processed vegan bread with vegan butter on it and vegan cheeses on it. I wasn't really aware, I think, of how much processed food I was eating because it was all in my head labeled really healthy, right? But it's vegan butter. Like this is just like really good stuff in there. Like I just thought this is like mostly coconut oil. But if I looked at the ingredient list, that wasn't really true. I was eating soybean oil and canola oil and just really heavily processed seed oils in everything all the time.
I love that it's not the coconut oil that was the problem. It's the seed oils. That's the new scapegoat, isn't it? Seed oils.
There is a freedom in having choices. I have felt such joy going to a restaurant, realizing that the whole world is open to me.
And if all laws were abolished, there'd be a lot of freedom in that too, right? Freedom has consequences. Choosing whatever you want from a restaurant has consequences. But really, I think this is just an extension of the identity issue, her capital V veganism. As she says, she put herself in this box. That's what veganism was to her.
The vegan one has been a very, very, very narrow, tight-fitting box.
Well, if you feel that way about it, then yeah, you're probably going to feel like you don't have any freedom and like you can't make your own choices. Whereas I feel that veganism is a choice. I've chosen to be vegan. I choose to choose the foods I choose at restaurants.
It's not like I'm back to eating processed foods and I've somehow become less healthy. Actually, for me, I really feel like it's the opposite. I feel much more healthy.
Implying that she was eating lots of whole foods on a vegan diet, again, not according to her.
It wasn't anymore for me mainly like a whole foods based diet.
And she just talked about being wrong before about attributing her improvement in health to veganism when really she had made all these other changes, like reducing processed foods in her diet.
I wasn't eating processed foods anymore, and I was eating only organic, and I made a lot of changes in my life that came along with that vegan label, but I attributed them all to being vegan.
Maybe she's doing it again, but with animal products. When she started eating eggs and other animal foods again, she started eating less processed foods. She's attributing her health improvements to eggs when maybe she's just eating better overall and it has nothing to do with the eggs.
Right after pregnancy, when I started getting really sick on and off, I had 2 doctors back then tell me, would you be open to introducing some animal foods into your diet? And I was like, oh, hell no. Are you crazy? I would get offended. Like I would take it personally, like they were just like personally attacking me, which is so strange because I don't think with any other dietary preference, like we act like that.
I find it strange she refers to veganism as a dietary preference. As someone who claims to have been vegan for the animals, she should know better. Veganism really isn't about diet at all. It just presents itself that way because that's the predominant way in which we herd animals. I'm not saying she should have felt attacked. That's pretty ridiculous. Her doctors were only trying to help. But there are really important reasons why it would make sense for her or anyone else to say, hey, let's not just start with animal foods. Can we try other things? I really don't want to support animal exploitation. She briefly mentions toxic mold that was apparently in her house.
Finding out we had toxic mold in the house, ending up leaving our house, ending up on this massive detox protocol that I was on for the better part of last year.
Which is really sad, especially considering they very likely did not need to do that. Black mold can be a problem for some people, the very old, the very young, people with compromised immune systems, people with respiratory issues like asthma, and the most common, people allergic to the mold. But we're talking like runny noses, congestion, coughing. It's not deadly. And by all accounts, that's what she was dealing with. Runny nose, congestion, coughing, which sucks, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't toxic. It wasn't seriously endangering her health. It wasn't weakening her immune system.
Dealing with mold, like making my immune system just so weak and susceptible to everything.
I have no doubt she believes all of this. There are so many people peddling this shit. I have no doubt she believes that she has candida overgrowth, but it makes it really hard to trust her ability to analyze her situation when she believes in such nonsense. Again, what?
Had another, this time a functional medicine doctor, suggest I eat egg, and explaining in depth why it would be very, very helpful for me to get more choline into my diet, and that I needed this kind of amino acid profile.
So you're telling me she's been living on vegan butter and vegan cheese, and the doctor's first thought is egg? By her own admission, her vegan diet was not healthy. Wouldn't you just try, I don't know, eating a healthy vegan diet? Or if choline is really the concern, taking a choline supplement, or eating more soy, which has choline and also a good amino acid profile. I mean, she did say it was a functional medicine doctor, so yeah.
The last doctor I've been working with, who I am so thankful for, is Dr. Will Cole. You can find him on Instagram. He's a functional medicine doctor.
You can find him on Instagram. I don't know, man. Not a good sign for a doctor, I feel like. If I saw my doctor on fucking Instagram, are you kidding me? We're done. That's not fair. There are doctors dispelling pseudoscience, which is really needed, I think. They're important voices out there, but if I wouldn't want them to be my doctor. You know what I mean? Oh, he's an anti-vaxxer. How lovely.
If this is meant to be, like if I am meant to introduce egg into my diet, egg will come my way. The universe will provide me with some sort of sign, or something's going to happen, and it's going to feel serendipitous and very much in my face. And it's like, universe will tell me and show me. Like it will be very clear. But I'm not going to go to the freaking grocery store and buy a packet of eggs.
Can you guess what happens next? I'll give you the short of it. She's on someone's property. They have chickens. They collected all the eggs for the day, or so they thought. Her, Rachel, yoga girl, her daughter, goes into the coop and finds an egg.
Oh, that's so funny. Like I already collected the eggs today. Wow, that's a really special egg. Honey, you keep this one. This one's just for you. And this woman, of course, didn't know that we were vegan. She says, this is just for you. And Leia holds this egg, looks at it, and she goes, no, this one's for Mama. Mama, here. She like hands me this egg. And I'm standing there with an egg in my hand, like, fuck. Like I was like, okay, well, this felt very much like a sign. It was just like, oh God, okay.
And then she puts the egg on an altar and prays.
I put the egg on my altar and I prayed. I giggle at myself now because it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I really prayed. I was drinking tea and I had the egg there like next to my crystals.
If you're waiting on signs from the universe to decide what to do as an adult, I mean, my 3-year-old and 6-year-olds don't make decisions that way. If I said to my 6-year-old, I'm waiting on the universe to tell me what to make you for dinner, I don't know what they do. I'm not going to pretend this isn't batshit crazy. I'm not going to pretend she is behaving at all like an adult should behave. And this has nothing to do with veganism. This has everything to do with her desire for the world to work in a way in which it does not, where things are meant to be, and we're all here for a reason, and we're all connected, and whatever other spiritual buzzwordy phrase you can think of. Just like I feel bad for kids being raised in super religious households, I feel bad for kids being raised in these sorts of households as well. They are not being properly prepared for the real world.
Maybe the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my whole entire life. And I knew, like, if this is not for me, I'm going to feel disgusted. I'm going to feel this is so gross. I ate that egg feeling so full. I felt so full.
Of course it's delicious. She's already convinced herself that if she got a sign, then it was meant to be. She got her sign, so of course it's meant to be. So it has to be delicious. It has to make her feel better immediately. And I'm sure I don't need to say this, but obviously, just because a food is disgusting to you doesn't mean it's unhealthy. Kale, I think many of us really don't like kale. It's pretty bitter. It's also like one of the healthiest foods. And the reverse of that, I remember when I had been raw for a long time and I had not had any processed sweets like cookies. And then I made a bunch of cookies for Christmas and I ate one and it was the most delicious thing I had had in so long. Even though I had been living on sweet stuff, on sweet fruits, there's just no comparison. It was so good. Does that mean I was meant to have cookies, that they were good for me? What? What is happening? So she keeps eating the egg, at first just once a week, then she starts really craving it, then she starts eating meat too. Why? I don't know. She talks about how hungry she was all the time when she was vegan.
I used to eat breakfast and then an hour after that, I'm starving. Like I used to have to eat so many times throughout the day and I would snack a lot throughout the day. I've gained some weight. I mean, that was kind of one of the first, it was really quick how that happened. And it's funny. And I have a feeling probably it's going to even out, in a while. It's like my body's still adjusting to the changes that I'm making. But the feeling that I almost had is that as soon as I started eating some animal foods, like my body went like, and it's just like holding on to that nutrition that's coming its way. Call me crazy, but could it be that she just wasn't eating enough food? Could it really be that simple? Who knows for sure? What I do know for sure is that I definitely cannot trust her assessment that she needed egg because she felt better immediately after eating one. The vegan way, the way I was living, and maybe you live different as a vegan if you're listening, but the way I was living wasn't the most sustainable way. The amount of packaged processed foods that had to be made in a factory somewhere and then shipped across the world in, paper and plastic to get to my plate. Like there's a lot of components there. And I genuinely believed if I was drinking oat milk and coconut milk and almond milk and all the nut milks, I was way more sustainable and better for the world than the next door person who had a dairy cow and they drank the milk from their own cow. And I know now that that is not true. For most foods, and particularly the largest emitters, most GHG emissions result from land use change and from processes at the farm stage. Combined land use and farm stage emissions account for more than 80% of the footprint for most foods. For most food products, transport accounts for less than 10%, and it's much smaller for the largest GHG emitters. In beef from beef herds, it's 0.5%. And she was right to believe non-dairy milk is better than cow's milk. It is. There's a miles away difference between being a kind of, like if I was the kind of vegan and I grew my own food and that's what I ate, right? And I know now living that way, I wouldn't be fulfilled. If that was the case, I would have been living that way. But she wasn't doing anything even close to that. By her own admission, she wasn't even eating mostly plants from the grocery store. I mean, isn't there a middle ground? Why is it either vegan butter and vegan cheese or you grow your own foods? I would love to live a life where I get to tend to my own animals. Like I would love to have my own chickens. Again, I have no issue with that personally. Eating meat is different to me. I don't believe there's an ethical way to kill an animal for food. And who knows where she's getting her eggs now, right? I mean, she talks a lot about these small scale farms, but is that actually where she's getting them? It's like, who was that Lonnie Jane person? It's just so interesting, these people who talk about sourcing your food from small farms, and yet they don't say where they're sourcing their animal products from. I don't know. It's interesting. Just a word just at the heart of this, because at the heart of my veganism was always the ethical treatment of animals, that if you can live a good, healthy life, and what I always thought was a better and healthier lives without animal foods, then why would you eat animal foods? And I still stand by that. The thing was, I wasn't living a better, healthier life. I wasn't feeling better. Why does it have to be healthier? So many of these ex-vegans seem to believe that we need to just feel amazing all the time. That if you get sick, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with your diet. No, veganism is a thing because we can be healthy and eat vegan foods. Not Superman, just healthy.
Now, according to her, she wasn't healthy, but she also was dealing with black mold and candida and stress, so the vegan diet was a problem too. I mean, again, she seemed to kind of understand you can't just do that. Like, she attributed veganism to all of her health improvements. Well, now she's attributing veganism to her sickness, but she was also apparently dealing with all these other things. It's kind of a mess.
As a vegan, when we decide to kind of step out of that cycle of life, the cycle of life that our ancestors have been a part of since the dawn of time, which involves death. Like, it involves life and it involves death. And we've separated ourselves from that just almost entirely. Like, that doesn't have a place in the world anymore. I am starting to wrap my head around the fact that probably that isn't true.
Of course it's not true. No one can avoid death. No one can avoid killing others. If you live, if you exist, you have killed other things to exist. If you live in a house, the existence of your house has displaced and killed animals. If you drive, if you ride a bike, if you walk around, you're stepping on bugs. Is there really any vegan in this world who denies this? I guess she did. I did see an old Instagram post from her where she said no harm, that veganism is about no harm. No wonder these basic concepts about life and death are such a revelation for her. Veganism is not about no harm. It's about less harm. That's the crux of the video. She does, she goes on to hype up some of her family. They have a small dairy farm, I think. Talks about how amazing it is to grow your own food, and that her family, they live a very circular life and there's no waste.
That small scale family farm who literally, live with the earth. What's better for the planet and more sustainable is that no middleman way.
It's really silly, especially considering like we can't all do that. If we all tried to do that, a lot of people would starve to death. It's also really sad. Like, why do you want to just farm all day? Like, that's a really, really hard life to live. It's a very stressful life to live. It's really hard on your body. I personally would love to get to a point where people don't have to do such backbreaking work, where my existence doesn't depend on people being paid poorly for such stressful work, where we all have the ability to choose what we want to do, where we have time for creative endeavors, for spending as much time with our kids as we can. But that's just me. Oh, and she recommends the regenerative farming book, Sacred Cow. No. But hey, she didn't say saturated fat is good for you or that we can't process plants. So, could be worse. She did say seed oils, which is a bad sign. But yeah, again, she says they still eat mostly vegan. They're not just having steak for every meal. So that's good. But yeah, a lot of weird circle of life kind of stuff in there.
There's a really ancient relationship between people and animals.
Last thing, I swear, anytime you hear someone say something like this, an ancient relationship between humans and animals, or respecting animals when you kill them, just imagine being on the other end of it, right? Not being the one on top, not being the human, but being the animal. Imagine how you would feel being on the other end and being described that way. And like, oh, they're going to kill you, but it's going to be respectful. And yeah, they're going to kill you and they're going to force you to be impregnated so that you can provide milk for them. But it's okay because it's an ancient relationship. Would you like being a part of that? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to kink shame. Sometimes the golden rule is the golden rule for a reason. It really is the most important rule. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. If you would not want to be on the receiving end of that ancient relationship, maybe don't put it on others, Maybe don't put it on animals. Hopefully she doesn't go full on, paleo or carnivore or whatever, getting the seed oils comment. It can be easy if she's reading that sort of stuff to get sucked into the like, oh, plant lectins. Oh no, we don't need fiber. Who needs fiber? Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe. Hit the bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. Thank you so much to my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do upload 2 videos there a month for $5 plus patrons. I just uploaded one pretty interesting. I may have a video on the channel about it once everything is said and done. But yeah, it's it's a thing. So give me money and you can watch the video, is what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you again. New video soon. You ready for spooky time? I'm pretty ready. I'm pretty excited. 6-year-old is still going to be the knight from Hollow Knight. Costume's almost done. Oh my god, it's going to be so cute.